Hi, I'm Chris, and this is April, and we're the Hinkles. And when I was about 10 years old, God had called me into ministry. And for the last 16 years, we've been serving as pastors in the Northwest Ministry Network.
And it was while we were pastors at our first church in Nasell that we went on a short-term missions trip with some students. And we had an amazing time. And the last night we were doing a celebration dinner. And it was that night that, in that moment, that I really felt God's call to minister in another country the first time. On our trip home, there was a moment where there were like 30 seconds that Chris was not sitting next to a student. So I went over and I tried to tell him real quick, God's calling me to this. And then the kid's coming back, so I just left. And the next day I went to say, hey, Chris, can we continue that conversation we started on the airplane? And he looked at me and he just said, what conversation? And in my heart, the Holy Spirit just so clearly spoke to me. He is mine to call. And so I began waiting.
Then about the end of 2018, as we're pastoring our church, we had some guests, the McCulloughs, and they're sharing about their ministry overseas in Wales. And it was in that moment when they were sharing, as my heart was breaking, God spoke to me and said, Chris, it's something you can do, and it's something I'm calling you to do. And so I took a couple days to process, and then I remember asking April this question, hey, what if God is calling us to do overseas ministry? And she said, I've been waiting 7 years to hear you say that.
7 years. And it was a while later that we brought our kids together and just shared what we felt like God was asking us to do.
And so we asked and said, hey, here's what we feel like God is calling us to. And then at the end of that conversation, our two oldest boys, Caden and Isaac, said, if God is calling us to do this, we have to do it. And even Isaac said, too, he goes, I don't know how to explain it, but there's this like fire in my belly. And we're like, Isaac, that's the Holy Spirit. We love that our kids are learning how to hear God's voice and respond in obedience.
And so as we were thinking, Lord, where are we going? He started to give us a heart for these unreached people groups, a heart for the Arab world. And we realized God was calling us to Northern Africa.
Where we're going, there's 31 different people groups. And out of the 31 people groups there, 27 have never heard the good news of Jesus Christ. And so our heart is that so people can hear and to see churches planted so more have access to the gospel. Well, hopefully, as we share our story of obedience, that maybe there's others where God's calling you to something. When God calls us, it's never easy things. It's always things that we feel like are greater than us. But that's the great thing about it is God is with us, and He will do what we can't do on our own.